Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of our AP Lazer workshop. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be working with our RotoBoss rotary tool, and we're going to be utilizing a JDS tumbler, and we're going to be doing a full circumference engraving. We're starting off a little bit different today from sitting at our desk to actually being by our machine because we do have a little bit of prep work we need to do beforehand. So what we're going to first start doing is we're going to walk through and we're going to start taking some measurements of our tumbler in order to create kind of like a template or boundaries to make sure that our imagery is going to stay within. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take a speed square, a triangle here, and I'm going to draw a straight line down my tumbler. With the JDS tumblers, there's no front or back markings or anything like that to tell us where it is. So I'm just going to kind of create one, and this is going to also help me make sure that my rotary tool is in straight, because we'll be running our laser head back and forth across the line that I'm getting ready to draw here. Come up and just draw a nice quick line here. Now what I'm using here is called a China marker. This can be found at almost any hardware store, Home Depot, for about 98 cents. This works real well for working with tumblers, working with granite, things like that, to where you can actually mark on it and it's not going to leave a permanent mark. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to take a fabric measuring tape here and I'm going to measure the circumference of my tumbler. So I'm going to start with my top, and I'm going to measure it right there on the top, right below that silver rim. And looks like I'm getting 11 inches on top. And then what I want to do is I want to measure my bottom. So I'm going to come down, and on this particular one I've got some ridges, so I just want to stay right above those ridges there. And we're coming in about 10 inches on our bottom. So then last, what I want to do is I want to measure between the top rim of my tumbler here down to these ridges, so I have my height. Just re-measure here. We're just, looks like we're about 4 3/8. So now that I've got my measurements, so 11 inches around on the top, 10 on the bottom, and a 4 3/8 top to bottom here. We're going to go ahead and jump over to our computer and we're going to start making our template here. Okay. So the program we're going to be working with today is going to be Coreldraw. And I've already got mine open here, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. We're going to call this a full tumbler for our file name. We want our color mode to be RGB. Down here on my sizes, I'm going to go ahead and change my working area for a 12 by 12. And go ahead and hit OK. So here's a representation of my working area. Now, as a default, Coreldraw normally puts the 0 mark up here on the top left and bottom left. So this bottom left-hand corner is my 0, 0 mark. Me personally, I prefer having my 0 mark to be the center of my page. So I can change this real easily by following my ruler lines here to the corner, and I'm going to right click and come to ruler setup. And down here where it says origin in, horizontal and vertical, I'm basically just going to split the difference. So my working area was 12 by 12, so I'm going to make my horizontal 6 and my vertical 6, and go ahead and hit OK. So we can see now that my 0 mark is right in the center of my page, here and here. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come up and I'm going to grab my ruler line and I'm going to bring down. This is going to be a part of how we initially set up for our template, because I want to draw a nice straight line, and so this line here is going to help me do that. I'm going to come over here to the left-hand side toolbar where my freehand tool is, I'm going to hit my sub-menu, a little black triangle there in the corner, and I'm going to do a 2-point line. I'm then going to kind of zoom in a little bit so I can follow this dotted line here a little bit easier. And I'm just going to click and drag my line straight across just like that. Doesn't really matter how big of a line that I draw, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to my toolbar and select my pick tool. I'm going to select my image here, and then underneath my sizing here, I'm going to change this to 11. And we can zoom out and see our line right here. Now that I've got that first line, I'm just going to take my ruler and get rid of it. And what I can do now is I can take the one straight line that I drew, and I'm actually going to copy and paste this. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to bring it down, and while I'm holding my left mouse key, I'm just going to quickly tap my right mouse key. That's going to copy and paste. You can also hold this and hit your Control-C to copy, and then Control-V to paste the line as well. So now that I've got two 11-inch lines, I'm going to select my bottom line here, and I'm going to change this to my 10. I'm going to go ahead and space this a little bit apart here, and I'm going to copy this again. Now this one here we had 4 and I believe 3/8. I'm just going to kind of minimize this and turn this line into a 4 here. There we go. I'm going to use my rotating right here to change that to a 90-degree to make it perfectly straight up and down. So basically what I want to do now is I want to connect these boxes. So I'm going to bring my one line all the way over here. And when we're setting this template up, it's important to see where your line is going to be connected at. In other words, if I take this line, even though it's a hair outline, to the outside of my first initial measurement, that top line of 11 inches, it's actually going to make it a little bit thicker. So I want this to be pretty well even up in here. Make some slight adjustments and boop. Kind of like that. I'm going to again copy this line and then move it straight over. Now, if we notice, our bottom line is still down here and is not connected. Because our tumbler does have a small taper, what I'm going to have to do is adjust these side lines to meet this one here. Now, one of the reasons that I switched my 0, mark is because this is going to help me line this up. So if I select this entire image here and come up to my XY coordinates, I can change both these to 0, 0, which is going to put this box smack dab in the middle of my page. So I can see where my left-hand side is positioned at. So we're just slightly off on our Y, so I'm going to check into our Y to 0. And then we see our X as a negative 5.497. So if I highlight, right-click, and go to Copy, I can then come over here to my right-hand side line, select that, and I'm going to highlight and paste, only I'm going to take out the negative number. That way I can assure that these two are in the exact same position. I can do that also with my top and my bottom line here. So I can see how on my X for my top line is at a 0 mark. So I'm going to go ahead and select my bottom one and do that as well. So that's let me know that this and this are centered up perfectly. So what I want to do now is I want to actually bring my lines over to connect to this bottom part. To do that, I'm going to click my line once and then twice. So this gives me a couple different options here. I've got my circle or half circle, semicircle, that I can spin this, or I can just grab my left and right and without moving that top part, bring it right over to my other line here. So you need to come down just a little bit here. Nudge it down. And then we're going to shift over again. Just like that. And so we can see how we anchored at the top here and then just shifted over the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing with the right hand side. I'm going to click once, click twice, and just shift that over. Now you notice when I did this one here, I actually shifted over and I could see where it highlighted node to let me know that I was right at that edge there. And we're off just a little bit, so we're going to arrow down. So now that I've got my box created, or my template, I'm going to go ahead and select everything, and then I'm going to join my curves to make this into one object. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to fill this up. So I'm going to be working with an EPS file here. I'm going to go to File, Import, and I got this EPS file off of our big stock, and image here. So I'm going to import this in as an editable and select for curves and hit OK. And so basically what we have here are just some icons that we're going to be utilizing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and select a few of these. Now this came in as an entire page. So what I want to do is I want to hit my Control U to ungroup everything. And then I'm just going to kind of come in here and pick out the ones that I would like. So I'm going to select, get my box out of the way here. And I think we'll select this one here. And as I select them, I'm going to actually regroup the image together. So I'm going to hit Control G to group that together. And I'm going to bring down to our center box here. And I think we'll select this one here, Control G, that down, and we'll go ahead and grab this one here as well. Also Control G. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring these down and kind of size them up correctly to make sure that they're staying within our little working area of a box here. Now again, if I want, I can snap everything here to a 0, 0 mark. So if I select my center image here, come through and change this to a 0, I can make sure that icon there is smack dab in the middle. And kind of adjust my other images around here. Just like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my image. I'm going to select everything. Up to File and Export. And we're going to be sending it out as a DXF AutoCAD. We want an AutoCAD R14, export units as inches, export text as curves, my BMP or bitmap as a BMP file, and filled or unfilled, doesn't really matter here. And go ahead and hit OK. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up my RDWorks program here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to engage my rotary tool in here. So I'm going to come over to my User tab. I'm going to select Other. I'm going to come down here and click on Read. Enable rotating, we're going to switch from no to yes. And in our last video, we used a different rotary tool. So what we want to do is we want to verify that our settings are correct here. So we're going to refer to our handy dandy cheat sheet here with our rotary picks and settings. I'm going to find my Rotoboss here, and we're using a 3-phase motor, so our circle pulse should be 5,000, and our diameter should be set for 2.1. Minimize that, go back in here, oop, wrong file, there we go. And we've got 5,000 and 2.1 set up here. I'm going to go ahead and hit right. I'm then going to go ahead and import in my image. Now I should let you know too that I do have my machine on before I'm able to turn my rotary tool on. So you want to make sure that you've got that powered on before you can do these steps here. We've got our DXF full tumbler right here. Actually, I brought in some extra images, but that's okay. We're just going to select these ones here, hit delete, and bring our image up here a little bit. Zoom in. And if I come here to my work tab, I can see that I already have 2 different layers set up. What I'm going to go ahead and do is just kind of reassign these layers. So I'm going to select everything. I'm going to come down to my bottom color bar and select 1 layer. But then I'm going to go to select just my outside lines here. And I'm going to change those to a different color. And I want that set up. I'm just going to set it up as a cut. Doesn't really matter if it's a cut or a scan. But we want to make sure that our output is set to no. So just as a safety precaution, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my power is set to 0. Speed doesn't really matter because we're not going to be utilizing this. Basically what this box is kind of doing is just letting us know where our parameters are based off of those measurements we took of the cup. So from here, I'm going to select my image. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Now, when you set your laser origin up for this, this is really a user preference. Me personally, I like to set my laser origin for the center left. So if I come up to Config and System Setting, I've got that left center dot selected right there. This just allows me to control where that image is going to start and stop based off the lip of that tumbler. Again, this is really a user preference kind of thing, so if you would like to start it in the center or center right, either one of those three are acceptable. Because we're doing something round, though, you want to make sure to stay away from either the top or the bottom origins. When you're doing something like that, you almost need to take your laser head off and away from the image or the tumbler in order for it to come out right. And especially when you're doing a full circumference engraving, that can get a little tricky. So I'm going to go ahead, while I'm here, is download my image. Okay. All right, so with my machine on, I've gone ahead and I've turned my rotary tool on, made sure my settings were correct, imported in my image. And I guess one thing we should double check is to make sure our speed and power settings are correct, which I have some other ones in here. Now, again, when it comes to speed and power settings for your rotary tool, this is really up to the user to determine. Me personally, I prefer to run my rotary tool a little bit slower, so I typically don't go over a 10 speed. I know I have other customers that prefer to go over like 15, 20. Again, if you're comfortable with it, whatever works and gives you an end result that you're trying to achieve is really the end goal here. But I'm going to dial my speed down to 10. I'm going to adjust my power down to 30 here. And I'm going to use a 300 dpi interval, or in inches, that's going to look like a 0.0033. Go ahead and hit OK. Going to download my image again. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to the machine now, and we're going to get everything loaded up here. So we've already turned on our rotary tool in the system and everything like that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move my laser head up and away from my rotary tool, and I want it to be kind of centered in to the middle of my table. This is going to help prevent a Y slop over error when we're working with the rotary tool. As we explained in previous videos, that the rotary tool does not have a limiter to tell it where its Y axis is at. So when it tries to reset, it takes a little bit longer for that rotary tool to reset. And once it can't find that limiter switch to tell it where its 0 point is, it's just going to revert back to its last known positioning. Which if I send it for relatively center of the table, then again, that'll avoid that whole error message. I'm going to move this up just a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and hit origin on my machine. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and power off. I'm going to toggle my switch here on the right hand side from flat work to rotary, and go ahead and hook my rotary tool back up. We'll go ahead and power on here and let our system reset now with the rotary tool. Again, it takes a little bit longer for the rotary tool to reset fully because it's looking for that switch. Never want to clear this information out as it's resetting, so please just make sure that your control panel does not say system resetting or anything like that. Let the system do its job. If you do override that, what can happen is it can get really confused on its location. Again, we can pick up certain error messages like our Y slop over error, frame error, those kinds of things there. It typically, like I said, takes probably about a minute or two, so we're going to let this finish setting up here. Now, if anybody doesn't have one of our little cheat sheets with the photos and settings for all of our different types of rotary tools, that should be on our AP Lazer University site under the download section. If you're not able to find that, please give our tech support team a call at 844-364-8211, and we'll be more than happy to get one emailed over to you. Our system should be done resetting here. A nice key indicator is you'll notice that this laser head is going to go from the left-hand side back over to the center here. One of the bad things about doing a live video is we have a lot of awkward pauses and quiet time. I'm going to try to fill that up the best I can here. But our laser head has moved away from the left-hand side now. So I'm going to go ahead and load up my tumbler. And we'll go ahead and switch our view over to the inside here. So first thing I'm going to do is, now that my Y-axis is turned off, I can manually grab my laser head and I can move that forward. And we can see we're a little bit high here, so I'm going to go ahead and lower my Z-table down. There we go there. I'm going to bring my laser head a little bit closer here. I'm going to go ahead and take my first focal reading here on the left-hand side. We want to come up just a little bit. Just a little bit more. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and move it over to the right-hand side here. A little high here, so I'm going to use my adjuster to bring this down just a little bit. So now with that line that I've drawn, using my speed square and my China marker here, I'm going to move the laser head left and right just to ensure that my rotary and my tumbler is in straight. I'm a little off here. Shift this around. Check it. Check my height again here. Look like we're good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just nudge it over to get a little bit close to that. Again, we knew our height was I made my height just a little bit shorter, so that does give us a little bit of wiggle room. But with my laser head over in the left center, I'm going to hit origin. And we can frame out. Now, a lot of times with RD Works, the speed is a little fast when you're framing. You can actually slow that down by pressing your speed button and lowering your speed down. This is going to help with the arrowing of the laser head, the nudging of it, trying to get into a nice spot, and again, the frame speed. All right, and we came right back to our line here. So everything looks good. We're going to go ahead and close our lid now. And go ahead and hit start. Now, while this is running, it's going to take a little bit longer than our typical or other runnings that we were having. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to my computer, and if you guys have some questions about any of this setup process, feel free. Let's go ahead and answer some questions. Okay. Michelle is asking, yes, Michelle, this is a 2-inch lens that we are working with. If anybody else has any questions, comments? Just to let everybody know too, if you are doing Yetis, I do have a pre-made template available for download on our AP Lazer University site as well, which is basically the exact same way that I kind of came up with this one here. That one actually has one line in the middle, which is the only difference, which kind of shows you how to line it up correctly with the actual Yeti logo in the front of the tumbler. Erica is asking, is it easy to switch out the different lenses? She has an 18-12. Yes. So we actually sell a lens package specifically designed for the 18-12 and 26-16. I would highly recommend getting one of those so you can get a variety of the different types of lenses. Other than that, with the 18-12 and 26-16, you can order just the individual lens and take it out and then put it back in and flip them around. The only problem with something like that is that it's very easy to get those lenses confused with each other. Basically with the lenses, just the smaller focal distance have more of a convex side to it, so more of a bubble side, compared to my longer focal lenses like the 3 and the 4 inch, which are a little bit more flat. So again, I would highly recommend ordering one of those lens kits if you can. Michelle is asking a great question here. If those lines were connected, or if she wanted to add in a line at the top and the bottom, would I just nudge my art 0.5 inches at the top, at the bottom corners? Yes. So something like that, I would highly always recommend, especially when you're trying to connect things, because it can get a little bit tricky when you're trying to do something like that, to make sure that the image is stopping and starting at the same point. A good way to test out some of these things, if you don't have a sampler cup set up, like I carefully keep one I've engraved everywhere, and I just kind of repaint it and use it for a setup piece. But taking some masking tape and masking off your tumbler, dropping your power way down low so you etch onto the tape but not onto the actual tumbler, will help determine like if you need to nudge it over. Now, if you're doing lines on the top and the bottom, I would recommend doing the formula to make sure that it's not stretched, especially on the bottom one, because you are driving at a larger diameter or circumference than where you're going to be etching at the bottom of that tumbler. To find that formula, you can see our other video on adjusting for that. I think we were using an urn for that one. Or we do have directions on our AP Lazer University site under the download sections on how to adjust for a tapered cup to make sure things are sized out correctly. Are there any questions, again, concerns, comments? I really hope you guys are all enjoying watching these videos, as I'm having a lot of fun making them. Hopefully you're finding the information relevant and helpful. It's like we just started our second image there. Still etching away pretty nicely. I know it's a little hard to tell in that video there, but you can see that center line that we're etching up to that I had originally drawn, showing kind of where the center of that main image is going to be. And if we look back at my RD Works program here, we can see right here this green box is an indicator of where my laser origin was set to. And so you see that when this gets done, the R and the I should be right, that line should be right down the center of those, kind of breaking them apart in that middle image and where it's saying American here. Michelle asked another great question here, that I didn't account for equal spacing between each art piece. Is there a way to ensure equal spacing? We're doing wraps and things like that. Yes, there is. If we'll go back to my screen here, and we're going to jump back to our Coreldraw program. So we can kind of use that, what you're talking about, like as far as coordinates and everything like that goes, we can nudge these over. There also is what's called a parallel dimension tool in here. And it's right over here on the left-hand side toolbar, right under my letter A. What this allows me to do is actually grab one point, draw a line, and tell me how far of a distance I am from this corner to this line here. So I can actually come over here and find like kind of my closest points. And so we can see that I'm off just a little bit here, about 0.3 inches. But that parallel dimension tool is a very helpful tool to make sure that you are completely centered up and spaced across accordingly. Yep, Michelle's asking, say my space is, so I should just split the difference on the sides, but spacing is 0.5, then I should space at 0.25. No, Michelle, I think that is a great explanation right there. That is perfect explanation. Thank you for the assist on that, by the way. Like I like to tell everybody, I'm a very knowledgeable person. By no means necessary do I know absolutely everything. There's always more ways than one to go about doing things. A lot of these processes we cover in these videos are just my process I do personally. And I'm always up for suggestions. People have different ideas and different ways to make it easier, especially if that means it's a lot easier to teach other people. By all means, everybody has my email address on here. Shoot me an email with suggestions, comments, places to find imagery, anything like that. All right, looks like we've moved over to our third and final image here. Now while that's finishing over running, I am going to go grab a few little cleaning supplies. This is going to be finishing up here in just a few minutes. I want to be ready to go ahead and clean it up for everybody. Okay, we are all finished here. Let's see what we have. So before I clean this off real quick, just want to show you that the line that we had drawn here, right in the center, like I said before, coming right between the R and the I here. So it looks like we did get centered up just perfectly. There's our circumference there. So we're going to go ahead over to our desk and clean this up a little bit. Now, when you're cleaning up the tumblers, again, depending on who you talk to, everybody has their own preferred method. The way that I kind of like to clean them up, I actually just use a little bit of Dawn dish soap. I use a magic eraser here. Another good thing, a little bit of Windex on there, or even a little bit of Awesome Cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this. I'm going to kind of dust it off first. All right, and here we go. Here is our full circumference engraving. And if you notice here in this one spot was kind of what Michelle was talking about, where I'm just slightly a little bit off right here. That's simply just nudging my image over a little bit. Great suggestion there, Michelle. I really appreciate that. So we'll leave this open a little bit longer for any other questions or comments. All right. Well, I do appreciate everybody joining in today. Again, if you have any questions about this process, give our tech support a call, 844-364-8211. They're more than happy to help you out, give you any kind of directions that we can. And we're going to be off for the next Friday and next Monday, but I do look forward to seeing you guys come again to our next class. I believe we're going to be doing a photograph, and we're going to be putting it on a mirror. So it should be a real fun, informative class. And again, I hope to see you guys all there. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.